My name is Timothy Grimm. I'm the one of the civil engineers that works for Batavia. And I've been working on this Ward 1 project over the last couple of years. I've been managing the construction portion of the project anyway. So we just wanted to get everyone that's in the construction area and kind of an overview of the project and let everyone know what's going on. First of all, thank you everyone for coming. We appreciate you guys attending the meetings. It really helps us to get the information out this way to get everyone kind of to speed on the project. So it's me, and then Andrea Pedraza, who's the assistant city engineer, is with me. So first, just a quick meeting agenda. What we're going to go through first, just some staff introductions, some of the people from the city that have worked on this project. And then second, we're going to go through a recap of the initial study and how we started and why we started this project. And then we're going to go into the phase 2, which is actually when we got into the design of the storm sewer and kind of go through a summary of that. And then we'll get into a little bit of the details of this year's work that's going to take place on this is not incorrect, but it's actually Lexington, Blue Stem, Cardinal, and Orchard. And then we'll talk a little bit about the construction impacts and what you can expect to see in front of your house. And then after that, we can get into some of your questions. So first, staff introductions. These are some of the people that have worked on this project, which started a few years ago. Kind of everyone here has had a little bit of a hand working on Ward 1. It's been a pretty big project for us. Gary Holm, the Public Works Director, Rahat Bari, who's the city engineer, and then of course Andrea, who's the assistant city engineer, who she actually started this project back in, I think,
2015 when we had the big rain events. That big rain event spurred both this Ward 1 and Area 3 with some large amounts of rain standing around pavement, yards, and unfortunately in some people's homes.
Yep. So that was right when I started. So that Andrea has been on this project since the very beginning. So she's got as much knowledge about this as probably more than most people. And then Jeremy Barkai, who's the water superintendent. He's been heavily involved because this project, along with the storm sewer, is also, we're replacing Watermain as part of this project too. And then Bill Kellum, the street superintendent, Scott Haynes, who's the head of public properties, myself. And then one of the gentlemen that's going to be working day to day on the project is Reggie Jansen. He works for Baxter and Woodman. He's a construction engineer and works directly with the contractor on a day-to-day basis. You'll see him basically every day that the contractor is out there. He's going to be there. He's an excellent engineer. He worked on our phase 3 last year, the work that took place on Chillum Drive and on Rye Court. So like on a day-to-day basis, he's a guy, if a question comes up and you see him and he's out walking around, you can certainly talk to him. And other questions, you can talk to me too.
And Tim, I just wanted to mention that one of the aldermen for Ward 1 is on the call as well, Jennifer Barron. And I know the newly elected alderman, he has come in and off. His name is Chris Stolfa, I believe. So those are the 2 aldermen for the ward, and Jennifer is very aware of the projects, and Mike O'Brien, the current one who is stepping down after many years of service, also is aware of these projects as well. So you guys feel free to reach out to them as well if you have any concerns, if you know them personally, and they can communicate with us as well if you're not comfortable reaching out to us.
So next thing I'd like to touch on is the drainage study and how this project got started. So just an overall background of the area that's of concern of this project. It's in this map showing here, it's basically Redant on the west side, Pine Street on the north, Kirk on the east, and then Geesey Road on the south. That's basically the drainage area that's had the most issues for quite a while actually, but most significantly in June of 2015. So this subdivision was built in the 1960s, originally as a county subdivision. And back in that time, there was a different standard for how stormwater was handled. Nowadays there's very strict standards on how you manage stormwater, and that wasn't the case back then. So some of the things that you see in this area are a result of the way things were designed back then. This kind of just the way things were done. So overall, this area drains from the northwest to the southeast, kind of basically from Lexington and Redance. It drains basically towards Kirk and then south. And then there's culverts that cross underneath Kirk Road that this whole area drains to. The drainage area itself is about 122 acres, which is a pretty sizable area of land. And then, so there's been a history of localized flooding of streets and other types of flooding that have occurred, but most notably in 2015, this storm that Andrea was talking about, where I think it was either a 10-year or a 25-year storm that I think it was 6 inches of rain over a 24-hour period. It was a very, very heavy rainfall. And that storm kind of triggered the engineering department to start looking at ways of making improvements to the area. The arrows just kind of show how the overall pattern of drainage goes. So once we initiated that we made the decision that we need to study this. The city hired actually a consultant to look at this in a big picture level, looking at the drainage and trying to see what the issues are or were. So the first thing that they did is an analysis of the storm sewer system. What's there and what's the size of the storm sewer? And with that, they did a hydrologic and a hydraulic model to see what the capacity is of that storm sewer. So the hydrologic model basically says how much runoff are you going to have for this particular area based on the size of the drainage area and the type of soil that you have. And then the hydraulic model takes that information and then comes up with levels of flooding for different storm events. So then as part of that, after they did this model, then they looked at the existing system to determine where you have undersized pipes or you have areas where the stormwater can't get into the pipes quick enough, where there's inlet restrictions. So that's basically the phase one study was to get an overall view of what improvements are needed and to start looking at what projects would be required to improve the system. So as a result of that study, they found that about half of the pipes that are in this area would only be able to convey a 5-year storm. And that's just a 5-year storm, a storm that happens once, is on average every 5 years. And 60% of the pipes were inadequate to handle a 10-year storm. They also found that the sag points, which this map kind of shows you basically where some of the sag points are at. You look at Dover Court and Lexington is a big one, Rye Court and Chilham Drive, Clover Court and Larkspur. And then of course, Geezy and Kirk. Those are some of the bigger areas, the sag point areas where we have most of our bigger flooding events or have had in the past. So 60% of the sag locations needed additional structures to get the water into the storm sewer quicker. Great capacity is a limiting factor in some sags, but overall, most of the issue had to do with the size of the pipes and could the existing storm sewer convey the water quick enough. So the recommendations of the study was to upsize the main storm sewer from Geesey, Larkspur, Chilham, Bluestem, Cardinal Court, and Lexington. Replace the storm sewer draining Orchard Court. And that storm sewer drains from west to east, and then it drains to the Kirk Road right away, and then it discharges across the culverts to the east side of Kirk Road. And then in addition to that, to provide maintenance of the culverts under Kirk Road. The 4 culverts, there's 2 24-inch culverts and 2 36-inch culverts that cross the road that needed to be maintained. And I think Andrea had worked with the county to have them. Those are maintained by Kane County, and she had worked with them to get those cleaned out and making sure that they had full conveyance capacity.
In addition, I worked with Fermi because once they go under Kirk Road, they go through Fermi properties. So that is the upstream end of Indian Creek. And Fermi worked on cleaning that as well to get the conveyance to be at the full capacity.
And then also replacing 6-inch and 8-inch storm sewer on Chilham, Lexington, and Bluestem to meet current design standards. So that's kind of where, again, when we were talking about when this was built back in the 1960s, a 6-inch or an 8-inch storm sewer maybe wasn't unusual, and that's kind of the way there wasn't maybe a standard to what there is today. Our current code has minimum sizes of 12-inch storm sewer, and if you build any development larger than a particular size, you have to build with a detention pond. And at that time, none of that was required. So some of the issues that you see here are kind of, there's a number of things that happen, but the subdivision wasn't designed, the way things are today. And one of the other things that I've noticed, working in this area for the last, basically 4 years, is the soils they're not well drained. So I have noticed even in a small rain event, you see the water will not perk into the ground. It immediately it'll start to pond, and then it'll start to run off. I've noticed this because I've seen in other parts of the city where there's better drained soils or sandy soils, and you can get a larger rain event, and that water immediately starts to perk in the ground, and you don't really see any evidence of runoff. It's a very different story in this particular neighborhood, and it's not unusual. I mean, you see that all over Illinois. It just depends on what soils there are. So it's just interesting, but that kind of adds to some of the issues. You've got smaller storm sewers, and you've got soils that are not real conducive to handling runoff. So that was the end. That was basically the end of the phase 1 study. We had some recommendations. In engineering, you go kind of through phase 1, which is the study, phase 2, which is your actual design, when you take recommendations from a phase 1 study, and then you actually take that and come up with plans. And then phase 3 is where you actually get into construction. So once this phase 1 study was done, we hired a consultant, this consultant, WBK Engineering, to prepare plans for the recommendations that were made for phase 1. So this was completed at the beginning of the, basically once the beginning of construction. This was all done basically at once. But again, the final engineering work takes the phase 1 study recommendations and further refines for bidding the projects for construction. It's basically taking the recommendations and developing plans.
Yeah, and so WBK they were the ones that did the phase 1 on this, and then they also went to the phase 2. So we decided, and we knew as a city that we didn't have enough funds to do the whole project at once. So it was broken down into 4 phases. And that's how the plans were constructed. They kind of did it overall. And then once we got all that engineering to work, broke it up into those 4 different phases, and the plans broken down to the pages that needed to be done.
Yep. So the work includes construction of new larger diameter storm sewer. And then also one of the things I was talking about at the beginning, we've had problems with water main in this area, lots of water main breaks. If you talk to our water superintendent, he can tell you this, regular breaks that occur. The water main's getting older, it's, going on 50 years old, which, that's really what you can get out of a water main, 50, 60 years. And when you start tearing up a road for a large storm sewer project, you usually want to get in there and address any other utility issues while you're there. So that's the second part of this project, is also replacing all the water main. And then, as Andrea said, the construction was broken into 4 phases, and the first phase was started in 2018. So this map just kind of shows you the breakdown. In orange there was the phase 1 construction in 2018. We started at the downstream end, basically a few hundred feet south of Giese Road on Kirk, and then worked our way north to Giese and then west up to Larkspur. That was very large. I don't know if anyone had seen any of that work that took place. It was very, very large diameter pipe. It was, I think, 5.5 foot diameter all the way up to Larkspur. And there was a very large box culvert that was installed at the corner of Kirk and Giese. A very big project. And then from there, in 2019, we worked on phase 2, starting at Larkspur, working north up to Chillum, and then west, and then along Bluestem Lane. So some of you probably saw that work. That's closer to your neighborhood, and saw some of the work that was taking place. Also, very big diameter storm sewer. The good thing is, as you work your way from the downstream to the outer reaches of the system, this pipe gets smaller. You have the downstream end, which has basically draining the full 122 acres, and as you work your way up into the kind of the branches of the storm sewer system, the drainage area is a little bit smaller and the pipe is a little bit smaller. So then phase 3 last year was from Bluestem west to Redant, and then we also did Rye Court. And then you can see phase 4, basically the limits of your project this year, which is Lexington Lane from Dover up to Bluestem, and then Bluestem from Lexington up to Woodland Hills. And then you can see the work on Orchard Court. We're really only doing the east end of that area. We're putting in a new outfall from the south side of the bulb there of the cul-de-sac out to Kirk Road, just putting in a new outfall. And then Cardinal Court's going to be a full, the entire length of that. We're going to put in new storm sewer and then also new water main. And then at the east end, we're actually replacing the outfall from the east end of the bulb to Kirk Road also. So there's going to be a lot going on in Cardinal Court.
And those crossings that Tim just mentioned have their own culvert right in that vicinity. They won't be draining to the culvert that's further down Kirk Road.
Right. And then we're going to be doing a little work along Kirk Road to make sure we have conveyance within the Kirk Road area, so that we're really reshaping the ditch to make sure that there's plenty of capacity there. So here's a plan. This is just an example, one of the plan sheets from this year's project from phase 2. This is Lexington Lane, and you've got Bluestem Lane. So you can see basically you can see the new storm sewer. You can kind of see, I don't know if you can see my cursor here, but there's the curb line in gray. And this line here on the kind of just south of the curb line is the new water main. So water main is going along the north curb line. And then the new storm sewer, which will be along the South Parkway, starting from the existing manhole at the southwest corner there, extending west, and then going all the way just past Dover Court. So, lots of work on it. So basically, the storm sewer you've got, they're putting stubs in with each manhole. These little circles here that are shown, those are the manholes, and then we're putting in little branches from the manholes to connect some pumps. And then along with the water main, we're going to be replacing services. So that work basically from the water main all the way up to the right-of-way line to the shutoff is going to be replaced with brand new service line, which is great. It's a good thing to do while we're in the area. We're going to try to address as many issues as we can in the right-of-way. And then you can kind of see there's a busy drawing here. I know it's kind of hard to see. It's pretty small, but there's also some of the branch lines. We're adding curb inlets at Dover Court. There's lots of curb inlets because that was one of the areas, it's one of the sag points where we've had flooding issues. So what we're trying to do is get as much inlet capacity as we can in that area. So we can minimize any flooding that we can in that spot. That's why you see so much going on in that little intersection right there. So that's just one of the plan sheets. There's a lot going on, and I know it's kind of hard to see, but I just kind of wanted to give you an idea of what that looks like.
And if you have any questions about your particular property, feel free to reach out to Tim and he can give you a snapshot of the work right in front of your home. Typically, we would allow people to come in and view the plans, but our offices are still closed to the public. So we can offer that to where he can send you an email and maybe have a discussion over the phone.
And then at the end, I'm going to have my contact information, my email address, and then, well, you've got my email address, but my phone number and everything. And then I'll have Andrea's on there too, just in case you'd like to talk to her. Next thing, just getting into the construction, excuse me, of it's not Larkspur, it's Lexington, Bluestem, Cardinal Court, and Orchard. Just to let you know where we're at now, the final engineering plans for this phase have been bid. This work includes the construction of the upside storm sewer and water main within the project limits, like I was just talking about. And this is the last year of the project. Started like I was talking about, we started in 2018 in phase one, and every year we've had done bit by bit a little piece of the improvements. So this is the last year, which is fantastic. We're very happy to be wrapping up this project this year. It's been a lot of work. But yeah, so the schedule for 2021, we had the bid opening on March 26th. We got lots of bids, which was fantastic. We got very good pricing, which we love to see. Right now, we reviewed all the bids and we're writing up a memo now that we're going to take to the committee of the whole next week, and then have the committee's review, and then hopefully we will have the contract award be done at the city council on April 19th. And then it won't be long before the contractor will want to start getting mobilized out to the site. We haven't had any meetings or discussions with him as far as his schedule. Typically, the contractors want to get started as soon as, excuse me, as soon as they can in spring, and get a head start. So I would expect they would probably want to be mobilized on site probably in early May. And this will be about, probably a 3 or 4 month project. I'd expect, it depends on how things go, but I would expect that they would be working until sometime in mid to late August. And they have a deadline to get the project done by the beginning of September. So lastly, construction impacts. Most of you have probably, living in the area, have seen over the past 3 years some of the work that's been going on, and probably seen it's messy, it's dusty, and it's not the prettiest thing. It's kind of like if anyone has ever had remodeling done on their house, a large remodeling job. If you could imagine that, it's very messy in your house. Imagine that on a bigger scale, a much bigger scale. And on top of it, while we're doing this construction, we have to keep all of our utilities, working while everything is going on. So like if you're going to do a bathroom remodel, your bathroom's offline, but when we do this work, we have to keep our storm sewers working and we have to keep our water main working so everybody has service. So that's kind of how we like to think of it. It's like remodeling your house, only 1,000 times bigger. So I guess you can expect to have noise. It's the contractor's got lots of big machines and trucks. It's going to be a little noisy during the working hours. The contractor can't start until 7 a.m. They have those working hours from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I say Monday through Friday. Sometimes contractors, they're allowed to work on Saturdays. And sometimes if they're behind schedule, they might work on Saturdays. That's not always the case. Once we have the contractor on board, we can talk more about that. Dust, during the summer when it starts to dry out a little bit, it does tend to be a dusty area. We do have the contractor sweep the streets and take measures to try and minimize the dust. But like in any case, there's a lot of soil that's being moved around, and when it starts to dry out, it's very difficult to eliminate all the dust. It's just kind of part of the process, unfortunately. But we will do as much as we can to make sure that the contractor is doing everything he can to minimize or mitigate the dust.
And we also they'll have a water machine on site or available to them where if need be, they can run that at the end of the day to settle the dust. And as Tim said, it might be a little dirty, like muddy, but at least they'll keep the dust at bay.
Yeah. It's just, and when you get into the hot summer months, or the really hot days of summer, you can put the water down and it doesn't take long for that to evaporate off. So the measures we take will help, but there'll be times when it's going to be a little dusty. We're going to do as much as we can to make sure the contractor is doing everything he should be doing to address that. Road closures. I don't know if I showed that. Let me move forward a little bit. We will have, there's small road closures, but it's closures to through traffic. So the area on Lexington from Dover to Blue Stem will have, they're called type 3 barricades. They're the big barricades. It says road closed, but it's to through traffic. So the people that live in that area can still get through, but we're trying to minimize, extra traffic going through that area. And then obviously Cardinal Court is going to be, it's not really a through traffic lane, but we'll have barricades so that people that aren't driving down there that don't need to be driving down there, I guess. And then also Blue Stem Lane will be closed to through traffic from Lexington to Woodland Hills. So parking on the street, that's another thing. During construction, you're going to have you're going to have an excavator, you're going to have trucks that are hauling gravel and removing some of the spoils from the site. So we want people to not park within the construction area while this is going on, because it becomes very difficult to get the equipment around when there's people parked on the street. Driveway closures, up to 14 days without access when new curb apron is poured. That's probably a conservative estimate, but when you have curb being replaced, obviously there's going to be a few days where the contractor is going to pull the old curb out and then pour the new curb, and you need time for obviously for that concrete to cure. So there's going to be points where you're going to lose access to your driveway. But part of the construction, this is something we're trying to improve the area, so it's a good thing. But when we do that, we'll have door notices. There'll be a couple of ways where we'll be communicating with you when these kind of things happen. The first thing is we're going to be sending out every week. At the end of every week, we'll have a weekly email update. I've got everybody's email, and I'm going to add you to a list. So that email update will give you kind of a quick update of what happened during the week during construction, what did we finish, and then what we're going to be doing in the next week. So you can kind of get a feel for the things that are going on, just a general idea. And then when we actually if we're going to be at your house working, whether that be on your water service, if you're going to lose a water service, or if you're going to lose access to your driveway, we'll put a hanger on your door to give you a notification of that the day before. And then, as you see these weekly email updates, if you have questions in your mind about really what's going to be happening, you can give us a call. You can call me, you can talk to the engineer that's going to be on site, Reggie, or talk to any one of us. I mean, one of the most important things that we want to do is make sure that you guys are aware to call us if you have questions, and you know, don't hesitate to let us know if you have a question or if you have a concern about something.
And the biggest factor that all of us have to deal with is weather. We can't control it. We can only do our best to work around it. There will be certain instances where the contractor feels they can work if there's a little bit of inclement weather, but there's other days where it's just not even possible or feasible, or the dumps are closed because it's going to be too muddy to truck or bring the trucks in there. So obviously that throws off the schedule a little bit. But Tim will keep you updated on those items as best he can. And for the big events that will happen, he can send an email like the day or two before that to let everyone know as well, in addition to those door hangers that will go out. Right now they're like a neon yellow, so you'll be able to recognize them right away.
Yep. And then actually those door hangers are used when you need to move your car and park that on the street. You hang that on your mirror, and that's kind of like your parking pass to be able to park on the street overnight. So that kind of comes in handy. So if you need those, if you don't have enough of those, you can always let me know, and we can get just, an extra hanger for your mirror, so you make sure you're not getting a parking ticket from the police. So,
and the police do know. We coordinate with them, both police and fire, when these projects go on, so they know the areas that people are being impacted, and they're aware of the hangers on the door or on your rear view mirrors. So during that time, you really shouldn't have to worry about that. We will, if by any chance that happens, just let Tim know, and he will definitely take care of that.
Yep. And then detours, like I said, we're going to have there will be detours set up for, if you live in an area that's under construction, that there's local traffic only. The detours are really meant for people that are trying to drive through the area. But just as an FYI, you'll see some detour signs set up as one of the first things that the contractor will do when mobilizes. Interruptions to services. The biggest one is going to be water service. When we put the new water main in, the first thing they're going to do, they're going to install the new water main, and the old water main will remain active along with your service. So once the water main is installed, it has to be tested, and that can take a couple of weeks, 1 or 2 weeks. It has to be tested for to make sure the pipe is sound, and then they have to disinfect and chlorinate the pipe to make sure it's clean and it's ready to be used. And when they do that, once that's done, the contractor comes in and it's called a tap. They tap the water main, and then they run a new water service into everybody's yard. And then in order to make that connection to your existing water service, they have to shut your old water service off. So at that point, you'll get a notice from the water department. You'll get a tag that says, hey, you're going to lose your water service for a short time. So that will take place. It's not usually a long interruption, but it can take a little bit of time. And then the other part of that is the contractors will typically, and the water department usually likes to have someone home when they reinstate that service. So before they're gonna make that connection to your existing service and put a new valve on. And when they do that, before they turn the valve on, they want to make sure someone's home, so that maybe they want to make sure that they're not turning water on that's going to cause an issue in your house. So,
and then you can run the faucet for a little bit just to make sure that everything has worked out and that the service is running.
Yep. But yeah, in the end, you will have new storm sewer, improved drainage in the area, and new water main and services, which is a good thing. But in the meantime, it's going to be a kind of a disrupt. It will be a little bit disruptive during the summer when the construction is going on. I just wanted to show you some pictures for anyone that kind of didn't see a lot of the work that was going on over the past few years. I have some pictures that were from phase 1, and this is like to kind of give you a scope of the big pipe that we had put in along Geesey Road and then in Kirk. This is the box culvert that was installed. This first picture on the left was a box culvert that was installed across the corner there. This is looking to the southeast. It was a very big pipe. I mean, it was that manhole that gentleman is standing in is, I think, a 8-foot diameter manhole. And that was a big project. And fortunately, the work that we're doing this year is smaller pipe. I think the largest storm sewer that we have is 36 inches. And by comparison, it's much easier to deal with. And it's not quite as invasive as this. This was a big project. But just to kind of give you an idea of what it looks like, you've got the excavator there, and then the guy is standing on the box culvert with what's called a shoring system, which protects the workers while they're in the excavation. And then that picture on the right, excuse me, is looking west on Geezy Road. They're installing the 5.5-foot diameter storm sewer. And you can see the manhole in the front, and then the shoring system that he's placing the pipe inside. And then this is I think also on DC Road, this is Watermain being installed. You can see it's smaller diameter. It's ductile iron pipe. You can see the shoring system again. And then that at the end, you can see that concrete structure. That's what we call a vault. That's where they put the valve. Like I said, there's dirt, there's lots of machines. There's kind of a lot going on here, but it kind of gives you an idea of what you're going to see. There's going to be a new 8-inch diameter water main that's installed throughout the construction limits of this year's work. This is a bigger pipe. This is a 12-inch water main. Just another picture showing the water main construction and a fire hydrant that's covered up in a sock right there. And I think that's at the corner of Larkspur and Geezy Road. And another picture. This is as the utilities. First thing that they're going to do is install all the utilities. They're going to put in the water main and the storm sewer, and then they follow back and start working on the curb work, and then they work on some sidewalk replacement and then driveway replacement. And not to go off on a tangent, but driveways will be patched in certain cases where needed. If we're working in your driveway, we will patch portions of your driveway that were impacted by the work. That's kind of what you're seeing here. This is at the corner of Larkspur and Geezy Road. The picture on the right, where the contractor had poured sidewalk, and now they're replacing a driveway apron, a concrete apron. That was where the storm sewer was replaced along the parkway, so that required that whole apron to be replaced. And then on the left, you can see the contractor has those little stakes that are kind of lined up there. That's the string line for a new curb. You can see that the road is dug out for a new curb, and you can see one of the storm inlets right there. In our case, there's some instances where we're replacing long lengths of curb, but generally it's more spot replacement of curb and gutter. And then kind of the final, one of the final stages of the construction is we're going to be replacing the pavement throughout the construction area from curb edge to curb edge. This is from phase one. We had a contractor in, and basically we just did a patch over where the storm sewer was located. And you can see on the left the milling machine removing the base, and then on the right is where they have the paving machine, and they're starting to do the paving or the patch. So yeah, again, aside from Orchard Court, Cardinal Court, and then within the limits of Lexington and Bluestem will be milling all of this existing asphalt and then replacing that from curb edge to curb edge. Oh, and this is just one of the plan sheets showing the detour route, and then you can kind of see the portions of the road closures in Lexington, and then Cardinal, and then also down below. It's kind of harder to see, but on Bluestem Lane there. That covers everything.
I have one thing to add,
Okay.
is that this neighborhood without the sidewalks is very, it's not clearly defined, I will state, where your property line is, as typical, with the sidewalk, it helps delineate that. So if any residents happen to have like an electric fence for their dog, we do ask that that gets marked so the contractor is aware of that. If it's in the right of way, it is not the city's responsibility to replace it. It should not be in there, but if we can have it flagged, then we know. And you may question how far they're going up, but again, feel free to reach out to Tim for that, and he'll send a letter to everyone kind of detailing the project timeline once we have that project executed through the contract with city council, and then have a pre-construction meeting with the contractor as well.
That's a good point. That has happened almost on every year that we've done this project. And we also did the work on Prairie Street, which I'm sure many of you saw between Wilson Street and Pine. Almost every year, there's one or two houses that someone has a the invisible fence. And the issue is that one of the first things the contractor will do is to call, it's called Julie. It's the underground locating service that they call, and the contractor needs to know where the existing utilities are. Private utilities, they do not touch, and they have no one would be aware of where those are located at except a homeowner. So it's really, really important that you communicate that if you have the underground dog fence, the wired dog fence, to let us know. And sometimes the contractor, if it's in the right of way, it's very difficult to work around. But if we know where it's at, sometimes they can try to work around it. But it is, if it's located in the right of way, like Andrea was saying, it's the homeowner's responsibility to make sure that is moved out of the way. And unfortunately, it's not supposed to be in the right of way, so it's up to the homeowner to repair it if it gets damaged. But contractors in the past will try to do the best they can to work around it. Obviously, when you're constructing a large diameter storm sewer, that's the excavation that they're digging is 4 or 5 feet wide. Is very difficult to work around a wire that's in the way. It becomes challenging, but they will do the best they can. So just let us know if you have an invisible dog fence. And then another thing I just wanted to say is that once we have the contract awarded, like I said, hopefully that's on April 19th. Very soon thereafter, we'll be scheduling a meeting with the contractor, and we'll start to fine tune and clarify when they want to start, how, what work they're going to be starting on first, what area they're going to be starting in first, whether that be Cardinal, maybe they'll start on Lexington. We'll start to fine tune that. And as I get more knowledge on what their detailed schedule is going to be, I'm going to send out an email to everybody. We'll start with the weekly updates and kind of get everybody up to speed with what's going on. So it's going to be a few weeks, but probably by the end of April or the first week of May, I'll be sending those emails out, and definitely before they mobilize. I'm going to shoot an email out and let everybody know.
And you may find that once they start on an area, if you happen to live in that vicinity, that it may suit you better to move your vehicle before 7 a.m. when they start and park it outside of the construction limits, because there are times where they may be digging up for that storm sewer or the water main going across your driveway, and it may take a little bit longer to get a hole closed back up. All you have to do is approach them. But if you see that happening and them ripping up the road and moving that direction, if you want to have ease of in and out, and it's not a bad rainy day, it might just make a little bit more sense for you guys to park outside of there. It disrupts them less. It makes it easier for you guys. Unfortunately, you do have to walk a little bit. And as we go through Cardinal Court, Tim will work with the residents in great detail to make sure that there's ease of in and out. And we will look at Woodland Hills Road as an alternate for some parking, and look at with the police as well, so that you guys are not displaced extremely far from your home, or maybe like one side of the street, something like that.
Yeah. And if you have, we had this last year on a couple of occasions where we were working, working in front of someone's house, and the resident had a doctor's appointment, and they said, hey, I have an appointment at 3:00. What am I going to do? That's the best thing to do, is to let us know. Tell us if you have an appointment or something like that, just communicate it to us and say, hey, I have an appointment that I really can't change. Can you make some accommodations for me? And we will work to make sure that you have a way to get out, and we'll make sure that you can easily get to where you need to go. Just need to let us know and communicate it to us as soon as you can. If there might be a conflict, to let us know. So it's real important when
Or if there's any special needs in your family, somebody in a wheelchair or injured and has to have that access all the time or a majority of the time, please let Tim know right away, and that can be worked out. It's very important for us to make sure that you guys, again, have that access and it doesn't disrupt you.
Yep. And that's why we're here, is to try to make that communication to the contractor, to make sure they know what's going on. So just let us know. It's absolutely why we're here. So that's kind of like, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add, Andrea.
I'm good. That's all I
Okay.
can think of.
Let's see if I can do this. I can't see my chat box, Andrea. I don't know.
There are no questions in the chat box. Does anybody have any questions? And if so, if you want to just raise your hand, there's a raise hand button at the bottom, and we can go ahead and unmute you guys if you have any concerns right now. Okay, John, if you want to go.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm at the end of Cardinal Court, probably the worst spot to be. I know where your storm drain is. I know where the culvert is, and I kind of got a really good idea where this digging is going to go through. And I know I'm probably going to have to park away. Question I have is, and I'm fine with everything, I just got a new fence put in, really nice 4x6 post. What's going to happen?
Yeah, I think I actually talked to your wife. I think I talked to your I forget your address, but I think I've actually talked to her, and we're aware of it. And the fence has got the storm sewer is going to go right through there. So we got to take the fence down, and we're going to put it back up. I mean, that's on us. It's in the easement. But that's just one of those things. It's got to come down, but we will
get my 4x6 post back, and not the little prefab garbage 1x6 stuff. That's,
we will talk about it. Whatever they put, whatever was there, we need to put back. If you had a particular type of fence that was there, we're not going to find the cheapest fence that we can find. We're going to put back what was there. So it might be something that would be helpful, though, is when we start this, is you and I, and then our construction engineer can talk to make sure we can talk to our contractor and, make sure that what he's providing is going to be what matches what you've got out there. So that way, that way, once it gets put up, then it's you don't go, oh, well, that's not what I was expecting.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly fine. I just need, and I'll get with you because I just want to know where an area is safe, so I can put like a little temporary wire fence for the dog. I just don't want him running on Kirk Road anymore.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I have wire, 5-foot wire mesh that I can run a little stakes in the ground just to give him an area to poop.
Okay. For sure.
Yeah. All right. Cool. I'm done.
All right. Thank you, John. And we'll be talking, I'm sure.
You got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then
Mr. Bertolak, I think, had a question.
yes,
Can you unmute him? I can't.
DM.
That's Mr.
You
Bertolak.
are. Oh, yes.
I can't unmute him.
Okay.
There we go.
Just a question as far as how trash pickup And deliveries will be accommodated during the construction period.
So that's a really good question. So when, it's Wednesdays, right? Is it Wednesdays?
Yes, yes.
Wednesday.
Okay. So when we get to that point, there'll be a couple of things. We'll be contacting Waste Management, or it's Advanced Disposal or Waste Management. I think they got sold. We'll be talking to them to let them know what's going on. They don't love it when these construction projects going on, it obviously makes their life difficult. But for us, either the contractor, one of us will make sure that your garbage gets to their truck. Every once in a while, when the construction is in full, we're in full construction, it gets kind of messy out there and sometimes they miss it. So if that happens, just let us know. But both the contractor and sometimes it's our construction engineer will take, if they can't easily get to it with their truck, one of the guys will wheel it over and get it to the guy. So there won't be any disruption to your garbage service. Like I said, once in a while, something gets missed. So if you see that, if something happens, just let us know.
Yeah, they may just come back a little bit later in the day to pick it up when they can access it. And for the long courts, they may have to back in and then pull forward out, or pull in and back out, just because there's limited turnaround space.
What we've done in the past that's worked really well is ask people to get their garbage out really early. So if it's out by like 6 o'clock, the garbage guy will come, he'll hit those areas first. So he'll come and do a pickup before the contractor gets started. And that way they're in and they're out, and then they don't have anything to worry about. If, they've had issues in the past where they try to get through an area where there's excavators and there's front end loaders, and it's very difficult for them to get through. So in the past, the thing that works best is, we talk to Advanced Disposal and we say, hey, we're going to be working on Cardinal Court. Can you guys please get there very early? And what we do is when we send out the weekly email updates, we include that in there to say, hey, on Wednesday, we're going to be working on Watermain. Can you please make sure to get your garbage out either the night before or by 6 o'clock? And then the pickup guy will come early.
Yeah, a lot of people have their trash out the night before anyway.
Okay, so hopefully that's not a problem. We'll send out a reminder though, just to let you know.
And then deliveries.
They find a way. They find a way. Let me tell you, those delivery people, they don't even care that there's construction trucks. They just drive right through.
Yeah, exactly. I haven't had that come up as an issue before.
No, it's these younger kids, I feel like, on their phones, and they just are, I got to get to this point, and they make a way in and out. And if they have to, I've seen them run half a block down the street to get your packages to your front door.
Yeah.
And that goes with the post office. Tim will work with the post office in this area to let them know.
Yep. And that's one thing. So there will be some mailboxes that will need to be relocated. So when that happens, the contractor will set up a temporary mailbox. It's not real pretty, but it's usually a temp mailbox in a bucket, sometimes a 5-gallon bucket with gravel to make sure it's not falling over. But they'll do that on a temporary basis to make sure that the mail can still be delivered.
Okay, and can sump pump connections be in the same place, the same spot?
Oh, certainly.
Yes.
We prefer that. We want to have it. We're going to sometimes, especially where you're at, Dave, is the existing sump pumps they're blind connected. We don't know where they're at. They're connected directly to the storm sewer main. So we have to kind of do a little investigation to see where they're at. But they're going to try to tie in your sump pump connection within the right of way where it is at currently, so they don't have to go into your yard.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
We got a question. Is that all the questions you have, I guess?
Yes.
Okay.
Will the representative be on hand from the city most every day?
Yes, Reggie will be there every day, full time. So when the contractor's there, unless they're doing something that's, doesn't need to be, 99% of the time he's going to be there. And I don't know if any one of you guys walked along. He didn't work on the project in 2019, but he was on the project in 2020 along Chillum Drive every day. He will be there, and he is a super friendly guy. You know, if you have any questions, talk to him. He's more than happy to help out or explain something, or he will. You're probably going to meet him because he will definitely knock on people's door to let them know if there's going to be a disruption to your service, or if something's going on in front of your driveway. He usually tries to knock on people's doors. Sometimes that will go along with the door tag. It just makes things easier. You can talk to people and let them explain what's going on.
Thank you.
In my weekly email updates, I'll have a number for him. I don't know if he likes it, but I give out his cell number to everybody. So
That's part of the job.
yeah.
We have a question from the chat box, saying there are a lot of kids in this area, ours included, and we really want the contractor and workers to keep their eyes open. Please, we work with this one, if there's any school bus stops over in the area, we work with the school district to potentially relocate those for the time being, because safety is our first and foremost concern. We don't want the kids in the area. The contractors definitely are aware of it, but we also ask that the kids be cognizant of it as well. I know a lot of kids may be interested in that, and the contractors don't have a problem, but that we don't want anybody, adults included, within the constraints of any trenches or anything like that. It's just for safety of everyone involved. So the machines, they all have loud backup beepers going on, and it's slow traffic speeds through the construction zone. We've had many of kids throughout all of our construction projects over the last couple of years, and there's really never been any issues. So they're aware of it after the first couple of days of being there. I think everybody is aware of the surroundings, and you know,
we had a lot of kids that would walk along Chillum Drive last year that it was kind of cool, actually, that, you know, they're not on the road. They were kind of standing on the sidewalk with their parents and kind of watching what was going on. It was kind of cool. They, you know, there's some younger kids that got to see construction. You don't get to see that in your neighborhood every day. There were some kids that loved, you know, seeing the work, and they would stop by not in the construction area, but they would stand on the sidewalk and just kind of watch the machines and stuff. And it was kind of cool for them to see that. But certainly when there's workers going on, if you can see is my screen still shared, Andrea? I don't know if you guys
it is.
The big machine in the back, that guy is up and down the street like every day, like 100 times a day. He's basically the guy that has to transport the gravel from the excavation to where they're storing it. So he's, I mean, it'll make you dizzy watching the guy. But that's why where Andrea's talking about is you don't want to get anywhere near that area when they're working, because, you know, they're focused on their work, and they're very conscientious of people around them. But if someone's standing and they're not expecting it, obviously that's a dangerous situation. So we've seen a lot of kids that will stand on the sidewalk back in the grass, you know, far away, and just kind of watch. And it's kind of cool. You want to see the kids kind of, they like to see some of the construction equipment. I know I loved that when I was a kid. So,
well, so did the big kids. We have another question, hand raised from Don Murphy. So if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Here's my question. I like to have a map where the parking is available to anybody in this area.
okay. When we get closer to having the contractor on board, Don, I know where you live. You're right next to Dave. You know, it's most likely when you're going to be blocked out of your driveway. The best place is going to be going to the south on Bluestem out of the construction area. You don't have too far before you're out of the construction area. So, but I can, you know, as we get closer, we'll have to figure some things out. Don, you're not in the worst spot. There's some spots on Cardinal where we have to kind of figure some things out because there's, a longer distance for people to walk to get out of the construction area. But just in your particular case, if you go south on Bluestem, south of Lexington, by a couple 100 feet, you're going to be out of the construction zone. And that shouldn't be an issue for you. And
Well,
again,
the other issue is when they're parking on both sides of the street, becomes a hazard with children and anybody else.
sure.
We do try to limit parking to one side of the street because most of the streets are still going to be active construction zones at some point, and there's going to be semis going down them, and it just makes it really tight for semis to be pulling through with vehicles on both sides of the road as well. So we have signs that the contractor is able to have that no parking per police orders, and they can stake those.
Okay, thank you very much.
You bet.
Those are all the hands raised and questions I see. Are there any others?
Jennifer.
Jennifer, go ahead.
Hi, thanks guys for putting this together and for the residents coming out. I do have a couple questions. And you mentioned the work along Kirk Road, and this may have been answered with John's question, but I know that there's some fences over there. Have you guys identified how many fences that may be disrupted with the work over there?
There's two fences. There's one that we're looking at that is in the right of way further to the west on Cardinal Court, and we're working with the homeowner there. And then there's another, and then there's John's. John's is really, it's the one that
The north side.
yes, along the north side, and it runs east-west. I don't think there's fence along Kirk Road that's going to be impacted because the ditch is further, that needs to be reshaped, is further east of the fence.
Okay.
Per plan right now, it's the fence all the way along his north property, along John's north property line. And then there's a second homeowner that we're working with that the fence is located in the right of way that we're trying to work out a solution to that right now.
Okay, great. And then you mentioned that there might be some Saturday work. How is that going to get communicated to the residents that will be affected if Saturday work happens?
Yep. So when we, it's kind of up to the contractor. The city code allows work to take place on Saturdays. Typically, the contractors will limit their work Monday through Friday. If they want to work on Saturday, they have to pay overtime. So typically they try to avoid that. Once we have the contractor on board and we have a pre-construction meeting with him, we'll talk about schedule. Normally they'll say we're not going to work on Saturdays, but there could be times where they might want to, there's something that they want to get done on one particular Saturday, or maybe there's been a lot of weather delays and they want to get in and they want to get ahead so they're not getting behind on their schedule. If that happens, we have a weekly progress meeting with the contractor. We're going to talk about what's coming up and what's going to be going on. And at that point, if we find out they're going to be working on a Saturday, we'll include that in a weekly update and let people know what's happening. So people will be informed if that's the case. Typically it's not, but if that's the case, we'll let people know.
Okay, great. And then the last question, I know that the people that have attended this meeting, you have their email address. If somebody isn't in attendance and you don't have their email address, how can they get their email address to you?
Let's see.
That will go with when you send the letter before we start construction. There'll be
Okay.
information on that. And then again, it'll be same type of thing, like for that to be put on that list to contact Tim at this email address, and he'll have Tim's email and his phone number so they can have that opportunity as well.
Okay, is it going to be Tim's direct email, or are you guys going to create a special email for this project? Okay.
No, it'll be directly my email and then my number. So as soon as the contract's awarded, then I'll start preparing the letters that Andrea was talking about, and we'll send those again to everybody. in the neighborhood. It'll be, it'll be probably a 2-page letter that explains the project and then has my contact information in it. And then also with that, then I'll start sending out the weekly email updates for the people that I do have their email addresses for. So once people get the letter, then they can contact me and then I can also get them on the list.
Okay.
And if they don't do it at that time, if they see Reggie outside after the project starts, they can just hand it to him as well, and he can pass it along.
Great. Thanks a lot, guys.
Absolutely.
Sure. And then John, you have your hand raised again. You had another question. Go ahead.
Yeah, real quick. You talked about reshaping the ditch. I've taken that between Kirk Road and the back, properties of like mine. When I was back there, putting the fence in and stuff, one day I'd have no water, next day I had 3 feet, and I got my shovel out and I started digging, trying to get the water to the drain, the culvert you got.
Yep.
And it wouldn't go, and I put a laser on it, and everything kind of goes my way. I've had 2 pumps. I got 2 sump pumps going. One goes every 5 minutes, rain or shine. When it rains, I got 2 of them going, 4-inch geysers of water going into my pits. I do waterproofing, like permaseals.
Are you talking about, I'm sorry, John, are you talking about in your basement or where are you talking about?
Yeah. When that ditch fills up, the grade of the ditch, the bottom of that ditch is like halfway through my basement. So the water like literally goes through the ground, goes into my foundation. I have to run 2 pits and 2 pumps to handle the water. I got 4-inch geysers of water when it rains good. Now, when we had that huge storm on 2015, I had 2 1-horsepower pumps going almost nonstop. Every 20 seconds, they were going off.
Yeah.
And when you reshape it, I mean, is there a way to put a culvert in there? Like have the drainage go through a concrete piping or something to kind of keep it from.
Well, even if you put it in concrete, it's not necessarily gonna, it's,
Well,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If we put it, like Kirk Road has to drain, part of it, like, is it Kirk Road has to drain and then people's backyards have to drain.
Yeah.
But the real advantage of having the ditch reshaped is that water that maybe couldn't flow as fast, it flows to the north, right? It flows from your yard to the north and then discharges across Kirk. So now once that ditch gets reshaped, it now has more room to be able to flow and to get out. Because what we want to do is take the water and get it out of there. So
Yeah. I understand, like, we get the groundwater that's coming off Kirk, the stuff. But I'm talking when the water's coming from 4 or 5, houses down, because it circles around behind the other guys on Cardinal and it comes to the ditch and then flows towards me. The problem is, since I've been there, it stays at me. It doesn't go anywhere else. It kind of like stays there until the rain stops.
Yeah.
I've had 5 feet of water there. I mean, the kids.
we have to, maybe we'll have to look at it when we're out there, John, and kind of see what's going on. I know there's, like I was talking about, the area, this whole area of this Ward 1 area, the area that we were talking about, from Pine to Geesey to Kirk to Redan. This whole area has a really interesting kind of, I don't know if it's the soils or what, but there's
Yeah,
a lot of people that have lots of sump pumps where there's sump pumps running like a lot. And part of that has to do with just how, the hydrology and the hydraulics. But what you're talking about, obviously, if you've got a lot of water in your backyard, you're gonna make the connection. Okay, that's water's got to be coming to my basement.
Well,
there's plenty of areas that really you wouldn't think would have an issue, but depending on how the soils are around your house, that water, if you've got when the contractor builds your house, if they put a lot of gravel around the foundations, that water that comes, that rain is going to go right to that gravel and it's going to go right to your sump.
I mean, I didn't get the college degree and all this stuff, but I'm I sign off on a bunch of foundations for realtors. I've been doing this since I was 12, with water drainage and engineering proper. I did Empire buildings, Empire carpets and Luna buildings. I did that whole entire project their drainage systems and everything, which were a nightmare, the old Chrysler building. And so I understand, I have dug around my foundation just to check. I've done, and it's just, it collects. Now, my one pump went out. This is when I first moved in. My one pump went out. I figured the next day I'll just go to the shop, I'll grab one of the other ones and I'll replace it.
Yep.
The other went out 20 minutes later. By the time I went to Home Depot and back just to get something, I had 2 feet of water in my basement. And that was literally 20 minutes.
So,
When they go out, I mean, when that rain hits and that ditch fills up, I mean, I've actually dyed it and, just to check, and I'm getting the dye in my basement in my
Yeah.
water. So I kind of knew I put the sock in there. So I've done all this stuff.
oh, you checked the dye, you dye tested it. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I
Yes.
put dye in the water out there and it put a white sock in my sump pump in the 4-inch holes. And eventually I got the color I was looking for.
Wow.
So I knew the water's coming from there to here. I didn't think it was coming, I wanted to make sure, and I live with it and I understand that. So, but I'm just saying when you reshape it, I don't know. If
Yeah,
it's
we will
right-
we'll take a look at that. In that area, both Tim and I are well aware of, it has a Nicor gas line over it too, so
it's just-
so that is one of our constraints over there too. They will be out and doing a watch and protect as we're doing any type of excavation along there.
All right, cool. Well, thank you so very much.
Sure.
This-
Thanks, Tom.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Not seeing anything, because if not, then I'll end the recording and as we've mentioned, Tim will be in touch as we get everything through council and send that letter out within probably the next month to give you an update as to project status and schedule.
And thank you all for taking the time out to listen to our presentation. And we look forward to getting started and to meeting you all out on the project site. So, and don't hesitate to email or give me a call.